There's only one dummy. It's kind of mobile, kind of flexible, and kind of rotates, and it's kind of not one I'm used to working on. But at the end of the day, that shouldn't matter. I'm just going to work on probably the first section, but everything we're going to do is working with a partner rather than getting you to answer a drill on a dummy. If there's an odd number out and someone wants to go on it, that's great. Background for you is very simple. A bit like Paul, I guess, except for a lot more handsome and speaks slower. Don't smell quite so much. It's true. True, isn't it, Paul? Yep. Fantastic. So, kind of big shoes to fill, so I'm having to pad it out of here. My background was I worked in close protection for nearly 18 years. In fact, I still do, but nowhere near to the level I used to do. I actually did Shokan karate as an 11-year-old to 17-year-old, and no disrespect to the style that I was doing, but I kind of got disillusioned for it. And I got disillusioned for it because A, I wasn't good enough, and there's no, and that was the biggest problem, wasn't to teach you what to start with me. And secondly, it didn't suit what I was doing. I was working out in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I was working in close protection for a family. We carry firearms. And if somebody went to the ultimate level of the work that I was doing and posed a threat to my principal, I was expected to deal with the problem. And if you're carrying a 9mm Browning, you don't go into washi-geri and stuff like that. You tend to want to slow them down a little bit quicker. The problem I had is, while I was doing all that, I was doing a little bit of close protection unarmed combat training, but it was all based around what I'd done. And what I found is, for me, and I will emphasise it is for me, it didn't work. Because the idea of working at a distance, somebody coming towards you and waiting to get there when I knew there were a threat, what was the point? I've got a very hearty little friend on here that can have a little conversation all of its own and was quite poignant in the message it was going to carry. The problem I had is if I was walking down one of the malls or something and suddenly somebody got to here before they started getting aggressive verbally or presented a threat, what was I going to do? Somebody gets to me at this range, the idea of trying to come up here or long, it just wasn't the right tool for the toolbox that I required. So I met this guy, little Chinese guy, and he was like, oh yes, so you do karate? And I'm like, yeah. He went, okay, that wasn't the subtlety I was expecting. And he went, no, I don't mean it's a martial art. I mean, for what you do now, it's not the right tool. So I'm like, why? Because defensive as you can, why not? He said, well, so we stood here. And he said, well, my weapon's always on my hip. I never carry it there. If it's in the Americans, they carry the films here. You go for your weapon there. You're going to trap it here, you're going to get hit. Always carry it. Anyway, by the way, I went for that and hit me on the nose. Now the lesson that you take from this is when a man can do that, don't say, I bet you can't do that again. But that aside, so it kind of made me start to think, what the hell? And I didn't know what Wing Chun was. I didn't know whether it came with a bag of chips on number 4 on the recipe or, I have no idea what it was. Didn't make it, so it was like, oh, I do Wing Chun. So, am I impressed? I have no idea. But I was impressed by the move. It was fast. It was furious, it was decisive, hurt like hell, and he was holding back, and it suddenly went, hell, I can do that in the range that I haven't got. So that was my introduction to Wing Chun, and I then started training Wing Chun purely for the combat, street self-defense, well not even street self-defense, the protection of others, which is different to protecting yourself to a degree. Bottom line is, I've always kept that going. So when I start doing forms, I don't look at the form as anything other than the toolbox to enhance fighting techniques. When I look at the wooden dummy, it's the same thing. I don't train the dummy for the sake of the dummy. I train the dummy and then I try and walk away from the dummy and go, right, what's that giving me? Is it giving me structure? Is it giving me? A, it's a partner that trains with you 24/7. It never gets tired. It never tries to sue you when you've dealt it. It can take everything you can give and more. And it doesn't move out of the way, which is bloody marvellous. Unlike opponents. Disadvantage is, it doesn't move out of the way. You've done it back. It's a piece of wood. So it is what it is, it's a tool that you're going to work with. The idea of training with a dummy is to make sure that when you train on it, you're taking something from it that's going to be valuable outside of training in a classroom with a wooden dummy. So that's what I want to play with today. What does the dummy give you? Okay, do a little bit of verbal first while you digest your sandwiches, otherwise you'll be throwing up cheese and onion everywhere, that's not attractive. And then we'll get you with a partner and we'll start working with it. If what I say doesn't make sense, ask. Okay? I will then tell you why you're wrong, because I'm from Yorkshire, I'm always right, and then we'll have a conversation about it. So, one dummy. What is it? Well, if you've got a leg the wrong way up, it's a sex toy. And if you're doing that, and you may laugh, I have walked into a martial arts school where the leg was up the other way. And how pleased did they look? Not quite sure what they were going to do with it. I didn't stay long to find out. Okay, it basically is supposed to represent the person. If you meet this person in the street, well, I'd be very scared, very, very scared. So, what is it? In essence, when somebody throws a punch, here, they tend to be most powerful from punching in front of their shoulder, that's square for me, here, through to being most powerful by punching in front of that shoulder. So this punch is powerful from here to here. As soon as you start taking the arm outside the line of the shoulder, then you start punching outwards, your pecs and your lats start stretching, your scapula starts meeting in the middle and rubbing together and getting really upset with you. It doesn't work very well. As soon as you start punching beyond the shoulder, across the body like this, it all gets too tight to manoeuvre. So your best punch is somewhere from in front of that shoulder to in front of that shoulder. And if you don't believe me, find out, test it, prove me wrong. Do it with a focus mitt. This punch tends to be powerful from here to here. Okay, so the best firing line you've got, the most powerful firing line in front of you is there. And if I do it that way, you can see where the wooden dummy starts to come in. Because that's the firing line that you're working around, and this is the zone that I want to practice working either inside here, dealing with the problem, or moving to the side of it and evacuating from the problem, and coming in with an alternative angle. The middle one can be anything. It could be an uppercut, it could be a rib, it could be a knee, it could be a kick, it could be whatever your brain decides it is that's coming in for around here, whether it's rising, falling or driving, doesn't matter, it could be pulling. Okay, and the leg, well, it's a leg. It's a leg forward, somebody steps in, it's somebody kicks, it's somebody hits the land, and it's whatever your brain is. The most powerful tool you have is carried around inside the skull and up here. Okay, that's your best tool, because your imagination is brilliant. How many of you have never had a dream in your entire life? Exactly. We dream about things, we create scenarios. Your brain is a wonderful tool. And when I'm teaching Wing Chun, we tend to train outside the classroom as often as we can. We tend to do it scenario based. You know, you're getting out of the car and three guys come up behind you, what are you going to do about it? You're walking out of a room, you open the door, and there's three people approaching you, how are you going to deal with the problem? Everything we do is scenario based because that's how your brain tends to react and remember best. So, with this, we're going to try and do the same thing. We're going to do it on a web dummy, but we're going to do it as a scenario example, and then you're going to work it yourselves. So, overview of the wooden dummy. These two arms here represent something like this. This can be here and here and here, and this could be a kick or a step or a lead. That's what you're looking at, and you're working around the problem. A lot of people like to hit the crap out of it. Okay? Good for you. The words bone cancer always kind of come out of my head when I think about that. You can hit it hard if you like, but I don't know what you think you're going to get from it. Because you spend all your time trying to learn about all this sensitivity and how you understand about energy and all the flows of energy and the changes of muscle structure, and then you knock shit out of this to the point where you're dead with your entire arms and all that goes to that shit. Doesn't make any sense. So hitting this hard is not what it's about. Putting energy into it and understanding how you use your elbow structure and posture, that is. The simplest way to describe the dummy, do you remember the old school protractors, the half circle that with all the lines on that you were supposed to measure the angle of lines on a bit of paper? Basically, that's what this is. This is a protractor. It is to help you find the lines of attack and lines of defence. Okay? So there are 4 keys to Wing Chun. And I know I'm teaching you stuff X, and I apologise for that. I'm teaching you stuff you already know. Position, energy, reflex and technique. Technique is a bomb lap, pax out entry, it's a technique, it's whatever it is. So if you're here, a simple technique is you pax out entry. Okay? You can see it, you can film it, you can play it back, you can YouTube it, God help us, and you can copy it, and hopefully over a period of time you can emulate that technique to 60%, something like that. A technique is visible, you can watch it, you can copy it, you can do it, you can be on the other end of it, and you get all the sensory information you need to be able to practice it to a degree. Okay? So that's what a technique is. Reflex is slightly different. Reflex is when I'm here, and he does his pax out entry, and I counter it. Okay? Watch it again, and there's my counter. Watch it again, and there's my counter. You can see my reflexes. Watch it back on a video, you can see it. But it's one step removed from being tangible. How do you copy a reflex, even if you know what I'm doing? It's all about what I feel and the timing and the muscle relaxation and what I'm doing about it. So, reflex is a little bit more difficult. Energy. When I'm here, and it's a pax out. I'm using a little bit of elbow energy. I'm not moving an awful lot. So let's be honest. Okay? Let's be 100% honest. Some of you are going, making it. Just making a lot of noise, there's no energy there. Because you have no idea whether what he was doing was powerful or it was just moving one hand. I can make a lot of noise making it look like I can do a lot of work. Energy is again one step removed. You have no idea whether it's actually doing anything or not. So with reflex, you can all see it, but with energy, the only person that gets it is him, because he feels the result of it. All the rest of you just have to hope you're not being conned. Position is the hardest of all. When a punch comes in here, and I'm here, it's why I'm stood here at this moment in time. Okay? It's why I've stepped this amount of step, this width, this angle, and this range. And it breaks down into several little things. Okay? Position is a combination of the distance from a person or a dummy, we're going to use a person, but a distance from somebody, your angle to that person, and the amount of rotation around them. So 3 ingredients. So when the punch comes in here, and I get to here, Jason, it's going to hurt you a lot more than it's just hurt me. It's just hurt me, so that was your chin. Okay, so I'm stood here. It's why I've stepped to where I've stepped. Okay, so what I've done is I've chosen a distance that I know is far enough across that you can't walk this back fast enough. Yep. That's his chin, by the way, just in case you weren't sure. I can touch him and hit him. It's the angle I've chosen to make sure that this can reach, but I haven't lost the reach of this hand. And it's the amount of rotation I've gone from here to get to around here, so I'm so far away from the hand I'm not too concerned with it immediately. So on the dummy, this is what's trying to help you learn. Now the problem is, every time Jason punched, he's in a unique place. Every time I step, it's in a unique place. How do I learn that when there's no consistency? Well, this is my consistency. The dummy doesn't move, or very little, not enough to worry about. So if every time I step I'm in a different place, it's my fault. Me that's wrong. But because it's in the same place, I can repetitively drill it until eventually I get it right. And there are little keys in the wooden dummy. For example, from here to here. On the jong, when you step from the ball to the palm, here, that's one of the little checklists for position. It assumes that my posture, it assumes that my tarn sound and my techniques that I'm utilising are right, otherwise I shouldn't be allowed on the damn thing. But what it does is it takes me from here through to here. If you take those ingredients about position, which are distance from, angle to, and amount of rotation, there is only one position for me on this jong is correct, and that's there. If my, let's say start arrange, if my distance was wrong, at the moment I've got 3 points of contact, my heel, or my ankle here, my tarn sound, or my palm. If my distance is wrong, I will start to lose one of those points of contact. If my angle is wrong, I will start to lose 1 point of contact. Or if my rotation is wrong, I will start to lose 1 point of contact. There can only be one position for me on that dummy that's correct. And that's what I want. I want to learn the correct position. So this. Now that doesn't teach me how to deal with a flailing lunatic who can fly you out immediately, but there is a lot of judgment perception, visual perception, spatial awareness goes on. Okay? And you probably don't realise how natural your spatial awareness is. How many of you drive a car? How many of you still got wing mirrors on the left-hand side? That's the floor not being knocked off yet. Yeah, so you've got decent spatial awareness. You drive down a road and you see a gap, and even though you're sitting on this side of the car and your mirror's all the way over there, through a little bit of experience, you tend to get to the point where you know how wide your car is. And you tend to start going, oh, I can get to it, that'll be fine. Okay? And I'm the same. And then I decide to take my family to Florida, and the silly sot sat me on this side of the car. Oh, this mirror was completely safe, there was no danger with that one. That one over there, which I'm not used to doing the distance of, oh man, it was hard work going through traffic. My spatial awareness wasn't working for me because I wasn't familiar with it. Okay? But most of us, we can judge how wide your car is, how far the wing mirrors are, and you get to the gaps that, you know, your passenger's going, really, you don't be doing this. And you go, yeah, it's fine, because you're familiar with it. And this teaches you the same thing, distance spatial awareness. Okay? So that's really these are the things that we're going to try and get out of the dummy. I'm going to try and get your partner working, so I'm not going to teach you the wooden dummy form. Okay, so I'm just going to pick slices of it for now. Okay, and then we're going to keep dipping in and out of a little bit of energy, a little bit of structure, a little bit of shape, a little purpose behind it. But rather than you sitting down, I think you're choosing on your sandwiches down here now, so you're looking reasonably better. So the very simple first one we're going to play with is the bomb to the tarn. Okay,